Hello again, North Newton Bulldogs. This presentation is going to be focused on our school-wide data and 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade data for this past school year. As Ms. Hager and myself meet with you guys towards the beginning of school, we'll look at individual grade level stuff as far as cohort growth, as well as we'll look specifically at the different standards within your grade level for reading and math and specific focuses that we need to have for your grade levels. This is kind of a big picture type presentation. So first we're going to kind of review our school improvement goals from this past year and kind of where we ended up. So this first slide here looks at reading. And you can see what our kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade goals were. And these were goals that we set at the end of the first quarter. And whenever we had our sit retreat this past week, we talked about being more deliberate when we meet at each quarter of setting new goals. So we'll have a middle of the year goal as well as a 3rd quarter goal and then an end of the year goal as well. So we'll do a better job making sure that these progress throughout the school year. So we're very deliberate at looking at our goals at each quarter. But you can see where we ended up at the end of the year versus our goals that we set for the end of each quarter there. So for kindergarten, our goal was 40% proficiency on TRC, and we ended the year at 50%. 1st grade, our goal was at 50% at the end of first quarter, and ended the year at 44.5% proficient at the end of the year. For 2nd grade, we were looking at 60% at the end of first quarter, ended the year roughly 49.5% proficient at the end of the year. 3rd grade, our goal was 50%, and that was on the Case 21 test. And then you can see the breakdowns for 4s and 5s on the EOG. Had 42.5% 4s and 5s, and then a little over 52% for 3s, 4s, and 5s. 4th grade, 53% at the end of first quarter on our Case 21 test, and end the year at roughly 27.5% 4s and 5s, and 47.8% 3s, 4s, and 5s. And 5th grade, 53% at the end of first quarter on the Case 21, and ended the year at 29% 4s and 5s and 45.5% 3s, 4s, and 5s. This next slide looks at our math scores, and you can see kindergarten through 5th grade again what the goals were at for K2, what the goals were for the middle of the year math assessment. And then 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, what the goals were for the Case 21 at the end of first quarter and where we ended up. So again, for kindergarten, our goal was at 30% and ended the year at 90%. 1st grade, middle of the year goal was 75% and ended the year at 65%. And 2nd grade, our goal was 60% on the middle of the year and ended at 44%. For 3rd grade, our goal was 60%, ended the year at 44.5% 4s and 5s, and 60.8% 3s, 4s, and 5s, so met our goal there. 4th grade, our goal was 32% at the end of first quarter, had 40% 4s and 5s, and then 47% 3s, 4s, and 5s, so met the goal there. 5th grade, the goal was 75%, and ended up the year at 48.2% 4s and 5s, and 62.5% 3s, 4s, and 5s. Our science goal, our goal was 70% on the EOG, and actually ended up with almost 42.9% 4s and 5s, and 53.5% 3s, 4s, and 5s. Our discipline and parent volunteers, I felt pretty good about both of these areas this past year. Our discipline actually decreased. The previous year we had 64 referrals. We almost made our goal. We dropped all the way to 36 referrals. And when you look at the discipline breakdown, which we'll look at here in just a little while, you'll see that most of those are only a handful of students that make up those 36 referrals. Parent volunteers, we didn't really have a baseline to go by. Our goal was just to increase the number of volunteer hours. And the way the program is set up, it runs for a calendar year. So we've only really got information for the last half of the year. And that last half of the year, we had roughly 434 hours of parent volunteers. Now, again, the way you sign into that program, we may have actually have had a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on how parents actually signed in using that program. This is our first grade cohort comparison, and yes, Miss Pugh, I did fix this chart before I posted it, but you can see where, this graph looks at our first grade students, and the 2013-14 proficiency percentages are from their kindergarten year. So truly we're comparing apples to apples here instead of apples to oranges. So this is that cohort of students, what they did in kindergarten versus what they did in first grade. And you can see in reading they basically hung out about the same. A little bit of growth there, did go up a little over 0.1%. In math, we had a little bit of a decline. So we'll look specifically with first grade about what we can do with the math. Our second grade cohort, so these were our second graders last year, and the 13-14 would be their first grade year where they were. And you can see we took a dip in both reading and math. So again, we'll kind of look there at some things that maybe we can tweak or do a little bit differently. Third grade, we got a lot more bars on here. So this is our third grade group and how they did in second grade versus how they did in third grade. And you can see in TRC they took a huge jump up, basically 22% increase there. Now, obviously, when we're looking at EOGs, that group did not take EOGs in second grade. So what we did is we used that 37.7% as kind of the marker for both 4s and 5s and 3s, 4s, and 5s on the EOG. And in both instances, you can see that percentage in reading increased pretty dramatically there. And in math, we used their end-of-year scores there on the math. And you can see that they were at 32.5% there. And again, when we use that in comparison to the EOGs, again, a good increase there in both areas. Fourth grade, this is when they were in third grade, so we do have some comparative data there as far as EOGs go. And when you're looking at TRC, again, a pretty dramatic increase there with fourth grade. When you're looking at just EOGs, there was a slight decrease in the percentage of 4s and 5s, as well as percentage of 3s, 4s, and 5s there. And part of the discussion we've had is that it looks like our Case 21 did not match up perfectly with the EOG, kind of like it did the previous year. The year before last, though, that Case 21 assessment really matched pretty closely, but for whatever reason, it didn't this year. So that's one of the things that we'll look at as we really start dissecting this data whenever Ms. Hager and I meet with you. When we look at their EOG performance in math, huge increase, basically doubled the number of 4s and 5s on the EOG and a 17% increase on 3s, 4s, and 5s. So big jump in math. And when we look at fifth grade, did have a decline in TRC as well as the EOG scores, but math did take an increase as far as 3s, 4s, and 5s on the EOG, a slight dip when we look just at the numbers of 4s and 5s. And I didn't say this earlier, but I do want to say this at this point. Guys, I could not be more proud of the work that you guys did this school year with our kids. Achievement-wise, I think we're heads above where we were the previous year. You guys just really buckled down, and we were really focused, especially when we look at looking at our data and looking specifically at student needs. I think we're really focused on what our groupings were set up whenever we worked with small groups. So again, I just thank you for that. As we look at preliminary proficiency data, our proficiency scores overall have kind of increased. And when you look at just proficiency scores and don't take growth into account, we are looking at possibly receiving a D on the report card again. Again, that's not final. That will change once the growth score is released. And just looking at preliminary data, I really feel like once that is released that we're going to be very pleased with the results there. So again, just very proud of the work you guys have put in this year, and I really want us to celebrate what you guys have done. This is a breakdown of our discipline data, and I'm not going to read through this wholeheartedly. PBIS has kind of looked at some of this stuff and kind of some things to take into account for the upcoming school year, and they'll actually do a presentation for you guys at that opening meeting. But the biggest thing I want to point out with this data is that, we did end up with 36 incidences this school year. And when you look at that, the bulk of them came after February. And if you look at March's data, we had 12 referrals in March, which besides May was leaps and bounds above any other month. So, we always talk about February and March, that time of the year being the longest time of the year because there's not really any breaks there. So we may need to evaluate some things that maybe we can do a little bit differently, especially when that time of the school year comes. Again, guys, I could not be more pleased with everything this past school year. I want all of us to hold our head high and be proud to be North Newton Bulldogs. And I look forward to this school year with our new theme that we've got with our World Culture School as well as the dual immersion program. So I know we're going to be doing great things again this school year, and I just look forward to taking this journey with you guys.